Hi, today we've got Carole from London joining us. How are you today, Carole?
I'm grateful because I'm alive. It's the little things that make a huge difference.
It certainly does. That's great. So tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you have your strokes, and what sort of progress were you making before lockdown happened?
Right, well, I had my first stroke in 2014. And as I was celebrating 5 years since that stroke, I thought I'd have another one. So clearly I need some help with celebration techniques. So I had my second stroke in February of 2019. And one of the interesting things is that I have very little memory pre-February 2019. So in real terms, I'm actually only just over a year old. And I feel a lot like how I think a newborn baby must feel, born into an unfamiliar world that you need to learn how the world works and then how to navigate it. So pre-COVID, I was learning how to navigate the world. And quite literally, I have travelled to Leeds, to Birmingham, to Spain, a whole range of places, and I was doing things for the first time. In fact, I went to Spain on an aeroplane for the first time on the 11th of March. I came back on the 14th of March, and on the 15th of March, they told me I couldn't leave my house ever again. So I've been in the house since the 15th of March, and I haven't been outside.
Blimey. You're lucky you got back from Spain. You could have been in lockdown in the sun all that time. And you came back to Britain.
That would have been really confusing, because Straight Brain had said we were in Spain for 3 days. If I'd been there for longer, I would have no idea where am I, what's going on.
So you were beginning to negotiate the world, or the UK and Spain. Physically, how are you?
Physically, I'm realizing that I had right side stroke, so it's left side weakness, and the my brain and my left leg have still got an ongoing battle. That there are times when they really have decided that they're not talking to each other. So and I'm in the middle. It's not fair. I keep wanting them to get, sort it out, but they're not doing that. But being in lockdown means that my mobility is compromised because I haven't been actively going places or doing things. So
that is the big compromise, isn't it? Anything you've been used to doing has just gone out the window for everybody. So how have you managed during lockdown then? Have you kept in touch with friends and family and things, or have you been on your own, or what's the situation?
Right, well, first of all, I think that we were well equipped to be inside because so many of us are challenged by whatever it is that we're challenged by. So actually being indoors wasn't a hard thing. My hardest thing was actually processing the term self-isolation, because in my brain, self-isolation means I am choosing to keep myself separate. And because I wasn't, I couldn't understand, because it didn't make sense. So I did take a few days to try and reframe that for myself. So I've decided I'm actually on a retreat. I'm in the space where I'm reflecting, refreshing, and recharging. I have no idea what for, but that's what it is that I am doing. So lockdown has been interesting. I think that there is going to be a disease called Zoomitis, because I've been having a lot more face-to-face conversations, a lot more video conversations, because I believe now that I'm so over text. I don't, if you send me a text, I may respond sometime, because there are just so many text messages, and it just really makes you feel so isolated, because they're just real bland things, no emotion. And I kind of like seeing people's faces, because then you can feel the emotion, and it kind of feels like that you're somewhere together. So yes, I've been doing lots of that, and then lots of speaking.
I think it makes a difference if you can see people visually rather than, like you say, text messages. They are emotionless, and some people can take them the wrong way when you mean it the other way, and it's very hard to have a conversation. Facebook's the same and everything, but I think talking to people, yes,
Yeah,
and definitely, and you can see their
yeah,
face, and
that's so true. And my stroke brain and texting are not necessarily best bedfellows, because I'm slightly autistic in terms of I can speak in black and white. And so if I make a statement, I'm just telling you the facts. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm not trying to be any of those things. But when I write it in a text, how other people receive it isn't the way which it is that it was intended.
but I think that's because of how we were brought up. We were brought up to speak, to say from your mouth what you want to say, not writing it down in a text message. And you've only got a short space to write it in, whereas when you're talking, you can say exactly what you want, as quick or as long, short as you like, kind of thing. So I think that's just that's part of us being old, really.
Speak for yourself. I'm not claiming that. Do you not look at how youthful I look?
Same here, no grey hair, in my 50s. I'm doing okay.
I've got no hair in my 50s. I'm good.
Well, we're not really that old then. So, shopping wise, have you had shopping deliveries, or has somebody been helping you out with shopping and delivering it, or what's been going on there?
Right, so shopping's a really interesting one, because me and food are strange. We've got a strange relationship, because I'm still trying to navigate my way through flavors and understanding what is I like, what is I don't like. And my shopping, the only way that I could shop was to visually to go to a supermarket and actually see the food and decide that I want to put it in my basket. Okay, I can't do that. So shopping, there was a point at which it is that my cousin decided that, Carole, you need food. So there were a few people that actually just bought food and brought it to me, because they thought if they were waiting for me to decide what I wanted, I was never going to eat again. And so that's still a work in progress. And I do get the government hamper, okay. Which on the one hand is great because it's food, but I'm wondering how many people actually eat the way that the government hamper comes to you. There is only so much tomato soup that any one person should ever take seriously, and I don't even like tomatoes. But so it's been a kind of shopping's been an interesting one. But I do have people that are now very keen to buy me food, because I'm good if I don't get it.
Oh, crikey. The boxes that the government sends you then, are they the same things every time?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And I realised that whoever it is that they're basing this on, they eat a lot of potatoes, pasta and tomatoes.
Blimey. I have read about a lot of people giving away to people with large families and things like that, the food that's in their hamper, because the hampers just aren't practical for them.
Yeah.
Would you say your hamper was for one person?
Well, because I can't quite work out how food works. When it was that they were asking at the beginning, they did ask how many people were in the household. Okay. So I'm assuming that the stuff that I've got is for one person, but I don't know. But it's funny, because one of the things that I've been doing is actually, there's somebody on my road that goes to a food bank, and so there are kind of like stuff that I'm giving to them so that other people could benefit from it.
That's again, I've heard of that happening as well, and it's some people have been saying we don't need these packages, we're in a financial state that we can get our own food and what have you, so the government are better off giving them to someone else.
Yeah. And
they say to the people that deliver them, no, take it back and give it to someone else, we don't need it. But they can't do that for some reason.
They can't, but you have to go to, but you can tell them that you don't want it anymore. You go to the source, there's a website, and you actually just say that you no longer need it.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful.
So you can do that.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. So what have you been doing for exercise during lockdown then?
I've heard of that word, and I would have to go look it up to work out what it was, because I've done nothing. Yeah, actually, I can't say that I've done a little, because I have actually done nothing.
Have you got a garden?
I do actually have a garden, and now it's not. It used to be the jungle, because I believe in the preservation of wildlife, and I think that we should start at home. So it used to be a jungle, but I think that there was my cousins were concerned about my sanity of being in the house and not going anywhere, and I think there was a particular moment where it was that I was in tears, and that they thought, okay, we have to do something, so they came and cut it down. And so that was kind of really good. It just meant that I could look out and see it, because I still wasn't going out there. But there was possibilities. I think that was it. But this week, I have been out in the garden 3 times, and that's 3 times more than I had been in the last 12 months. Yeah, 3 times more in the last 12 months. Yeah, and definitely not in COVID-19 time.
And how did that feel?
Well, the first time, what I did was that somebody challenged me, because I keep doing this, and I realised that a lot of things for me, unless I've got a purpose for it, actually I can't, I have no reason to do it. So someone challenged me, and I think I was also feeling really low, and so I thought, well, actually, if you walk to the end of the garden, you'll be able to change your state. So I walked to the end of the garden, and then I walked back, and then I thought, oh, let me walk again. I had to go to bed at 7:30, because it took so much out of me, and my left leg decided that it didn't do this kind of thing, so it couldn't understand what was happening. So I had pain and discomfort, which confirmed my feeling that you should never go outside.
Or do exercise.
There you go. That was it, exercise.
You. I'm in total agreement with that. But now you've got the taste for it, there'll be no stopping you, especially in the summer weather.
I then had another mad moment, or a stroke brain day, where there's an organisation called Wheels for Wellbeing, and I had 1 session of riding a trike, and I was going to get more involved, and then COVID-19 happened. And then they sent a newsletter, and it said something like, you could hire a trike. So I thought, wow, I could do that. I didn't quite imagine the speed of things would be quite so quick. So I've actually now got a trike that's in the shed.
But how did it get down to the shed? Did you take it?
Yes. So I
There you go.
Yeah, so someone brought it, and I've got an end of terrace house, so they can come in the side. And so she was checking how I worked on the trike, and we have both agreed that I've got some practice to do. So I guess I'm supposed to be practicing, but it's in the shed. One day, I believe I'm going to go on the road with, well, not on the road, but go outside the house with it. I've got a cousin who rides, and he's threatening. It feels like a threat. I'm sure he's not, he's saying it out of love, but it feels like a threat. But he's coming so that we could ride up and down the road. And there's a park at the end of the road, so quite literally I could cycle in the park. But yeah. So the cycle diaries will be interesting.
Yeah, make sure he films it and put it on our different strokes group.
Yeah, that would be definitely entertainment factor. Lots to laugh about.
Oh, you'll be fine, and that'll get you out in the fresh air, and that'll get you back out into that world for when you have to do it for real.
Yeah, I actually realised that I don't actually ever have to leave my house, because I have done over the lockdown, I have given talks. I've actually run workshops. I have done stuff sitting in this chair, and I'm not sure why I need to leave the house. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are feeling like that, and certainly working from home, it's opened up everybody's eyes, well, why do we need an office to sit in? We can do it from home. We can, it's
Yeah.
it's a new way of life kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see what goes back to what it was before lockdown and what changes.
Yeah. Well, I personally believe that actually nothing can go back to how it was. In real practical terms, it's not possible, because everybody has been changed in some way, whether that be good or bad, but has changed in some way as a result of the experiences that we've had. And that some of the stuff that's going to be really challenging on a physical, but also on a mental level, is when we're trying to bring things back. In fact, the first few weeks of my stroke, I actually thought they'd invented a time machine, because everybody talks in backward language. We can't go back, full stop. So it's not that we could go back if, or we actually can't. So we need to be talking in forward thinking language, because it just isn't ever going to be the same. But then it was never going to be the same, even if everything was normal.
Things always move on, don't they? Regardless,
because otherwise happens. Yeah. So I think that our thinking is the stuff that actually needs to change, and know that nothing will ever be the same, because it never is.
Yeah.
And we often say that, like, people are fearful of change. No, they're not, because today is Wednesday. Yesterday was Tuesday. Nobody was saying, oh my gosh, I can't do Wednesday because it's different from Tuesday. And I'm not sure I'm going to manage Thursday. We're not. So we are constantly in a state of change.
Yeah.
So actually, it isn't change that we've got a problem with. And so we need to change our language in relation to what it is we're saying, because words frame our world. Yeah. The words it is that we say set us up for what it is that we're going to experience.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what changes and what happens, and the changes to people as well. So I'm a big people watcher, and I love seeing what happens, how people react to certain things and what have you. And one of the things that stresses me out just now about the outside world is when you go shopping and they can't follow the arrows and they can't do the 2 meters and everything. That is the most stressful thing about this whole situation. It drives me up the wall, and everyone's going to think you said that in the last interview, but it really does. Every time I go out, I come home and moan, and my husband's like, oh, not again. How simple is it? It's for your own health and the health of others. It's to keep you alive right now. Nobody's doing this for a laugh. And, it gets me that people can't follow rules. That I think it's that thing. You were brought up to follow rules and do as you were told.
Yeah.
And because
not everybody. Evidently, not everybody. Yeah. And it's probably just as well that I'm not leaving the house, because the arrows would confuse me. So like, yeah.
You'd be the one I was getting mad at. She's gone down it the wrong way. Go back. You'd be getting one of my glares.
Yeah, okay, this is just too much for me.
You get to an aisle and we both be collapsed in the middle of saying, stroke brain can't do this anymore. Carole can't go the right way. I can't cope with Carole going the wrong way. We've had it.
The kind of whole thing, but the stroke brain's a real thing. But one of the gifts that I've got from the stroke brain is, because I don't have any major memories from pre-February 2019, I'm realizing that fear, worry, anxiety is learned behavior. And so therefore, when it is we worry now, it's based on experiences that we've had in the past. The fact that I have had none of those experiences, I have no idea what fear, worry, anxiety, regret actually is. And it isn't necessarily that I don't feel the emotions, but because I've got no label for it, I don't sit in it. It's just a thing that comes in, and okay, it's come in, I experience it, I acknowledge it, and then I move on. Yeah, I'm kind of wired weirdly.
to think that you're going through all those emotions for the first time again.
Yeah. It is, but the great thing about it is because I don't remember, I don't know that it's a thing. So like people say, well, you know, aren't you kind of worried about, or don't you miss? And I'm thinking, well, I didn't know what it was, so I can't. So it's just perfectly normal for me to not know. Oh, you don't know that? Okay, then let's work through this. Like for me, the biggest revelation for me, which actually happened on Saturday morning, was Friday night. I had a really emotional moment where I was crying and I couldn't understand why I was crying because nothing had changed. And then the more it is, I don't know about you, but the more it is that you try to work it out or try to stop it, you just cry some more. And I couldn't understand. And then what it is that I do sometimes, perhaps not enough, is I reached out to my DS fam.
Yeah.
And just kind of like said, you know what, I'm having a hard time. And the love and the hugs and stuff that came back just kind of helped me to get to sleep that night. And then when I woke up in the morning, there was a message that said, there was a link to an article that said that this might help. And it was about neurofatigue. And I have used that term to describe lots of things, but until I read that article, I didn't really understand. And it now explains my whole life. That actually the reason is you haven't been able to do that is not because you're just useless. It's not because it's actually because you don't have the capacity to do that, and you haven't managed it in such a way to help you to be able to do it. It feels like I've been on a stationary bike and what I've been doing is pedaling, and then when that hasn't worked, I've just pedaled faster, and I kept pedaling faster and thinking, well, therefore that's going to achieve things, and then thought, hold on, I'm still in the same place. What does that mean? And what's happened and stuff? And because nobody spoke to me about it or explained it, I didn't know that all of this was based on the fact that actually neurofatigue is a very real thing for me. And so therefore, planning my day, looking at how it is I fill up, actually is key to be able to navigate this journey. And since Saturday morning, I've managed to go outside for 20 minutes. Okay, so I have been instructed to do so, but I've managed to do that. I've drank more water. I haven't sat in front of the computer for 12 hours. I've got up and I've moved about, or I've done absolutely nothing. And I've been good with that, because I think that that's the other thing that it did for me, is that I'm sitting in a space where I've been trying to clear the clutter for 3 months in particular, but probably 12 months in total. And it hasn't worked. And it's that whole thing where you just think, why can't you do that? It's simple. Why? And then I cleared a space and then had this whole idea. I've got a through lounge, that what I would do is I take everything out of one side of the lounge where my desk is, put it all in the other side and clear this space. And that was a fantastic idea. And I got started, and you all can probably tell the part of the story we're at, where actually I have now made it 10 times worse than it was before, and I got stuck. And then just that whole kind of, what is, I don't often beat myself up, but that whole bit where you're actually saying, well, obviously you're silly or whatever, because you can't sort it out. There's obviously got to be something wrong with you, because this is really straightforward. Why can't you sort it out? And then you start to get almost, not complacent, but that whole bit where, well, I'm never going to be able to change it. It's never going to be any different. Okay, I'll just sit in it. Was now that I know that I got neurofatigue, hello, you were never going to win the way in which he's starting to do it. Actually, you were setting yourself up for a fall. But strangely, even though it's still a mess, I feel so much better about it, because actually I know that I'm doing the best that I can right now.
Yeah.
And that's just like, oh my gosh, I can celebrate, even though I can't clear I can't move that thing from there to over there, but it's all right.
Well, now you'll be able to set yourself little tasks and say, even if I just shift that pile of paperwork or whatever it is, or put that back in there, just a tiny little bit a day,
Yeah.
you'll feel that you've achieved so much, and you'll eventually get there. And if it takes you 3 months, it takes you 3 months. Who cares?
Yeah. So by 2021, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you've got to do what's right for your brain, and your health as well. And if your brain's not working,
Yeah,
well,
it's not. Yeah, no. So I want to say to everybody, my fellow stroke survivors, my fellow DS family, don't beat yourself up. Look in the mirror, and your job is to be kind to the boy or the girl looking back. And that, yes, you're not like anybody else. None of us are. But you know what? That's what makes us special. That's what makes us awesome, that we're not the same. And we can only do it our way, not the ways of the people that in our lives that say that we should, not the way that the family say, not even the way the doctors say. We can only do it our way. So own it and keep moving forward, because every day that you wake up and you breathe, it's one step forward. It doesn't matter that it doesn't look like, oh, it should look, no, you woke up. Come on, you can do this.
Definitely. What was that word you used in the Facebook group post you put on? Flawsome.
Flawsome. Yeah, and that actually is a word. It would have been the kind of word that I would have made up, but it actually really is a word. It is the whole idea that we all have flaws. None of us are perfect. I'm really sorry to tell you this, just in case you thought you were. Nah. But then that also means that that person next to you that you thought that they were too, they're not either. So we've all got flaws, but do you know what? That does not stop you from being awesome. I actually believe that everybody is awesome. We've just got different flavors. And what you have to do is find your flavor. So go be perfectly imperfect, because that's the best that you can be. And just strive to be the best version of you every day. That's the way to move. Find your groove. Even if you can't move your feet, even if you can't move your hands, you can move your eyes or your mouth or just something. But that whole idea that actually just be the best version of you right where you are now, not where it is you're going to be, or where it was you could be, or where it was you should have been, or where it was it used to be. Nah, the only thing that we have is now. There is no tomorrow, because when tomorrow arrives, guess what? It's now. Yesterday's gone, so we got to say goodbye to that. All we have is now. So let's look at how we, for ourselves, live in now, your now. Because your now and my now is not the same thing. It's got the same words, but it's different. Identify your now and live in it. Occupy it. Yeah.
That is brilliant, because it's a thing we all struggle with, because you think, if only I could go back in time before I had my stroke and I did X, Y, and Z. Well, like you say, we can't go back.
Yeah.
We've got to let it go, hard as it is, and we've just got to get on with the new normal. And like you say, just being our awesome selves again. But that article on neurofatigue is a brilliant article. And we'll get a link posted to it so other people can read it if you haven't read it, because I couldn't find an article after I'd had my stroke that explained it as perfectly as this to me. And I think it's a good thing to explain it to other people as well, because that's the other hurdle we all face, is explaining it to our friends and family. Because you look okay, you're happy, you're smiling, you must be fine. Now, they can't see what's going on in there. They don't know, what bits are broken and what have you. And it's a good way to explain it to them. And I think we could even take it and break it down even further. But I think it's something it's a message we need to get out to ourselves about fatigue and get out to other people so they can understand us. And, I think that'll help us all be awesome as well.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I think the other thing that I want to ask people about or suggest is to really identify where in the brain you had your stroke, where it is that it's been compromised. Because I've spoken to a number of stroke survivors and they have no idea. And if you have no idea, you don't know which functions then are more challenged than others. So the moment it is you can identify where was the stroke, what does that govern in relation to your body, in relation to your thinking, you now know where the challenges are. In very real terms, not just, oh, this is what I'm experiencing, but you actually know medically, these are where the challenges are. So that you are now standing in a position of strength, because actually you can look at how you develop your strategies to be able to cope with those areas. And then also it helps to explain that a little bit more to the people in your lives. Because I remember now, after the first stroke, being on a radio something with somebody and just talking about the stroke being a brain injury and the manifestations, some of it are physical, but it's a brain injury. And the person that was interviewing me said live on air to her family that they all need to apologize to somebody in their life that had had a stroke and they thought that they were being difficult. And that was because they didn't have the knowledge and the information. And the medical profession seems to have failed us in that respect, because that isn't their first port of call. So they don't, after you've kind of like survived and you're there, they don't say, right, this is where it is that you've had the brain injury, if there is, injury, but this is where it is that the brain has been impaired. And these are the things that it governs. So therefore, there are things that are going to show up in relation to that. Because I'm now remembering my first stroke was a right frontal lobe infarct. I actually like saying that word because it sounds like it's a square word. So it was a right frontal lobe infarct. But the right frontal lobe deals with emotions, focus and processing. But I didn't know that because nobody told me. And I went to volunteer somewhere and they did an induction. And I'm in a room and there are about 8 people in the room that I don't know. And they say, introduce ourselves. So we go round the table and I can feel my chest tightening and I don't understand. And it gets to me, and you're not going to believe this, I burst into tears. And I'm talking real proper tears, so much so that the woman at the front of the room had to come to me to try and comfort me and to check that I was okay. I had no idea what was going on. They asked me to say my name. And when it was that I went to the doctors and said, right, this happened, they said, oh yeah, something like that could happen because that part of your brain deals with emotions. Sorry, do you not think that that would have been a useful bit of information for me? And actually, for the 5 years of my stroke, I couldn't introduce myself in a group of places. I could lead a workshop and stand and tell you my name, but in that context, I couldn't. And the great thing about this stroke is that I don't have that problem now. This stroke knocked that one out of the park. But what I'm meaning is that I didn't know until it happened. And then I asked someone from the medical profession, like, what could be the problem? And them saying, oh yeah. And so sometimes just by knowing where the impairment is, that thing gives you some kind of freedom, because you now understand, oh right, that's happened because, not because I'm stupid, not because I'm not any good, not because blah, or anything, it's because actually there's some impairment in that way. So you can make the compromises that you need to navigate that. Because I believe that there's a guy called Dr. John D. Martini who says there are obstacles along the way. And that it's a real interesting and a subtle shift. But if we see an obstacle in the way, that's a barrier that prevents us from moving forward. If we see an obstacle along the way, we now have a different thinking about, oh, I need to navigate that or find a way around it, which just changes it for us. And I believe that as stroke survivors, that we are powerful beyond what it is that we know and understand. And that, yes, we do things differently. Yeah, we do things differently. But you know what? I'm thinking, yeah, that's great. Because if you think about that whole saying that said, great minds think alike, fools seldom differ. That kind of whole idea that great minds I don't necessarily agree with that actually, but great minds don't maintain the kind of that whole status quo. They actually think outside the box. But for me, there actually is no box, but to think outside the box. And I'm wanting to encourage you, on stroke survivors, come on, we survived for a reason. We didn't just survive because, yeah, it was something to do. Do you know what? You are still here. You're still living. You are still breathing. So do you know what? There's still things to do. That's my thinking that gets me out of bed in the morning, because other than that, I actually got no reason. I've got no cat, no dog, I've got no children, I've got no brothers or sisters, I've got no mother. My father's in New York. Actually, I'm on my own. And if I started to focus on the things that were impaired, the things that I had challenges with and problems with, actually, there's no reason for me to get out of bed in the morning at all. In fact, there's no reason for me to be here on this planet. I might as well check out now. But I believe that the best for all of us is always in front of us, because actually, if it's behind us, we've missed it and we need to quit. But seeing as that's not the truth, it's not time to quit. It's time to just keep going. And you know, if you ever need an injection of crazy, I'm full of it. So I've got lots to spare. And if you are unable to laugh at yourself, that's okay. Touch base with me and I will laugh at you for you.
That's so true. I so agree with all that you've said there. It's getting that knowledge, and I think very often, you know, the NHS fails us if they just sort of explain it to us, instead of you get that discharge letter and it's got all these words on it and you either can't say them, like I can't say that one you said, and what have you, and where it is and everything, because you know, it's true. You can see it physically. If you've had left side stroke, your right hand side can be compromised, and vice versa. But it also works if you haven't got any physical impairments. You know, the left side controls X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And the right side controls A, B, and C. And you know, it's true. If you had an idea, you can sort of say, right, okay, that's why, and I'm going to work out how to get around this, not sit and wallow and say, oh well, I can't do that anymore, you know, kind of thing. And you know, because we're all young stroke survivors as well, and we've still got so much to give, you know, we've got to get on and give it, you know. We can't waste any time, you know. And if you ever want to borrow a dog or anything like that, or children, I'll quite happily send mine down in the train. They'll be with you in 45 minutes.
That would be interesting. Straight brain and dog go for a walk. That sounds like a wonderful comedy sketch.
Well, they like a park. They're beagles, so they'll sniff.
Oh, that's okay then.
Sniff their whole way round, so you'll be fine. So, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge when you're allowed to leave shielding and go out into the big bad world? What do you think you're going to do first?
Well, I think my biggest challenge is actually going to be physically leaving the house, because stroke brain has been told so long that you can't go out, you can't go out, you can't go out, you mustn't be with people, you can't go out. So actually that's normal for me.
Yeah.
So actually the whole idea of actually being out in a place and being with people, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. And and currently I'm not really sure what happens outside of the walls of my house. So I actually have nothing. No, that's not strictly true. A park, that might be a thing, but I have nothing that I actually want to do. And even though I am a woman of faith, I'm a child of God, and so church is a really important part for me. There's lots of my kind of fellow church folk that are looking forward to church being opened. Me, not so much, because that whole idea of being in a place with lots of people, I actually don't know whether straight brain can manage that, because it likens it a lot to the first time I went to a supermarket last year was sensory overload, and I was in tears in the aisles because actually it was just too much. And it's that whole feeling that actually it's going to be that kind of thing, just too much to process all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I'm not a hermit. I don't want to be a hermit. No, I don't want to be a hermit. No, because I'm also single, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be single forever? Because I'm never leaving my house. That's not good.
Do you think it would help you if you had someone to go out with you for those first few times, or are you better going and finding your own way? Because I know we're all
Yeah. No, I think that this for me feels a lot like when I left hospital last year, and the only way that I could leave the house was if somebody actually went with me. And also at that time I didn't actually want to leave the house. It was the physio that kept saying, actually, we've got to. And so the first time I walked down the road with the physio. And I realised in the last 12 months, I've probably walked down the road physically 5 times. And that was before COVID-19. So I'm not really sure that I'm in a hurry to do that anyway. But essentially, there are lots of things I'm not going to be able to do unless it is I do it with somebody. So things like my car is sitting outside the house and they are resurfacing the road, and so my car needs to be moved. And my next door neighbour said to me, oh, do you think you'd be able to move it? And I said to her, don't be silly. It would be the worst idea. It'd be like your 2.5-year-old getting behind the wheel and saying, let's drive. Yeah. But when I got in the car last year, I had to get a driving instructor to take me out on a lesson in order for me to feel competent. So it isn't even about confident, it's actually, I'm not sure that I know how to. Yeah. So that's going to be a whole interesting scenario. But I also know that actually one of my challenges is also going to be that if I don't leave the house before mid-August, when it starts to get darker, I'm probably not going to leave the house for the rest of the year, because it's kind of one thing about leaving the house, but actually leaving the house and it's not bright, leaving the house to an unfamiliar kind of like space, actually processing that's going to be hard. And if we add the neuro fatigue with it, actually I'm going to be horizontal for the rest of the year. Okay.
Well, I think you just have to do it in baby steps, and the baby steps have to suit you as well. So maybe the park with your bike or without your bike.
I know, but I'm going to have to do a bike thing, even if it is just to give an entertainment factor for my DS fam. I'm going to have to do the bike.
Now you've made us all a promise. You've got to stick to that now.
Did I say that out loud?
You did. You did. And churches are allowed to go back from the 4th of July. But I don't know if there's restrictions on numbers, but I know you're not allowed to sing.
Sorry.
I know. I think now, everyone is going to have a stroke brain, because there's so many things you can and can't do. But you can do them inside, but not outside, but outside, but not inside. And 2 meters, 1 meter, ordering drink coming up at your phone. Oh, okay.
Like I said,
we're all going to get confused.
The right place for me is at home, because this is just totally crazy.
Well, we've sort of said, we don't want to go anywhere where there's loads of people and what have you, and you've got to think about what you're doing, because you just I'd never get there if everything's changed. The world as normal is hard work enough. That's the fatigue again, but without adding things that have changed, and you've got to remember to do this and not do that and what have you, not worth it. So
I'm out.
Yeah, definitely I'll go shopping for food, and that's bad enough, but that's it. Well, I hope you do your baby steps okay.
Oh yeah, my baby steps.
And I look forward to the video of you in the park on your bike. And I'm sure everyone else is going to be waiting for that now, Carole.
Okay.
Well, thank you for talking to us today.
Yeah.
And it's been lovely to talk to you. And,
you too.
Get your lounge sorted out.
Okay. Okay, hold on. I've got to do this. This is kind of like the thing, Bob. Sending you lots of love from my heart to yours.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, thanks again, Carole. Okay, bye.